listen to the podcast Way Too Spooky.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Way Too Spooky. We survived. We made it to the sequel.
Yeah. How you doing? How you doing, Chris? Did you have a good week?
It's been good. It's hot.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like some cooler weather, but you know, summer's also been great, so can't complain.
Yeah. Well, to all our listeners who listened on the first episode, all, I don't know, 100,000 people listening
At
right now?
least there's probably 250,000.
Exactly. So we appreciate you guys tuning in to episode number 2. And, you know, we decided with episode 2, let's just hit them over the head with one that holds a dear place in our heart. A really messed up one. Terrifier.
Yeah. Terrifier.
Terrifier with Art the Clown. Now, not everybody knows Terrifier, but if you're a horror fan by this point, you definitely know who this clown is, and you have definitely seen this cult classic. It's a slowly building cult classic. Is that a good way to describe it?
I would say so. Yeah, it's a slow burn, but he's evil. He is sinister. I you know that anxious laugh you get sometimes in awkward situations, or you don't know how to react. It's like, I feel that way when I watch him. He just makes me uncomfortable.
That's I'm actually glad you said that, because if I had to describe this movie and the way it made me feel was uncomfortable. You know, Netflix, this movie only came out in like 2016. But I remember, I think I was on just scrolling through Netflix before that, and they had all these horror movies up there. And I remember seeing Art the Clown's face. But I think it was the 2013 All Hallows Eve.
Right, it's a little different.
Yes, it looked slightly different. And I was
different actor.
Different actor, same clown. But I was like, it just made me feel so, it was weird. And I was going to watch something else, and I never got back to watching it. And then I remember our friend Sean, he texted me. He goes, yo, you have to watch this movie on Netflix. He goes, it's about this sadistic clown that just goes around, and he's the most ruthless clown I've ever seen. And I was like, I think I know what you're talking about. And then he told me it was Terrifier. I was like, oh, this is a thing now. This is this character has a couple movies. So I rewatched it yesterday. But the first time I watched it, it's been years since I've watched a movie, especially as an adult, and I just turned 37.
Right.
That I was watching it by myself with the lights off, and it has a gritty, dirty vibe to it, which is cool. I think maybe they were going for that. But he's very stalkerish. He does not talk. And one of the early scenes in the movie is him just walking. And then he's so goddamn ugly and creepy, and they zoom in on his face. And it was one of those, I don't know if I should be watching this. Like, what am I doing?
And the worst part about it is that that's when he meets, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but
Right.
he just sets his eyes on his first two potential victims. He's just I don't even know if he's a guy. He looks like a guy. He's real lanky.
He's tall. Skinny.
His teeth are fucked.
They're like demon teeth. They're like black. I would say it's like black fangs with like black blood, like oil or something.
And, you know, and like he carries all his weapons.
He's pointy.
He carries all his weapons in like a contractor's trash bag.
Yeah, and like I was like, wow, it's amazing nothing pierced through and just fell out, because in the very beginning he's just collecting all his tools to go out on town on Halloween just to cause mayhem. And he's got like switchblade knives, razors.
It was like a cat. What are they called? Like the cattail knives, whatever. When they
everything.
everything
any
under the sun.
tool. Yeah, and he had like cut off. He has like cut off white gloves, and even his fingernails are the same color as the black lipstick he has on his face.
Yeah, he's got like, it's odd. I don't know how to explain it other than he's almost expressionless, but he also has just enough expressions to kind of make him just what does this guy want?
And there's a lot of clown movies out there, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space was just comical, but the original It, like his fangs when he was that was scary, that was spooky,
sure,
especially as a kid. So this was really the second time only that a clown made me feel that uncomfortable, and his face is so pointy. Like, it's not like he's like a cute clown then he gets angry. He looks like a demon. He's got the pointy, crooked nose, a big chin.
Oh, I know. And look, some people would say that my obsession with the Halloween movies and the slasher movies of let's think the Michael, the Jason, the Freddy. Some would say, oh, well, you have little kids in your house, like that's not appropriate. And I don't memorialize it in the sense where it's they're I want you to watch these right now, but I would be damned if I have Art the Clown of anything in my house.
He's terrible.
With little kids, he's terrible. He's
and I'm not like terrible. I don't care for like over the top gore.
Yeah, but he kind of scares me.
Yeah, it's just his presence, slow walking. Like, I'm not scared of any kill he does in this movie, but just that face.
Well, and he's a mime. He's like a mime-like clown. He doesn't make any sounds.
Yeah.
So when he's in pain,
you can kind of hear him, kind of like when he's like fake laughing or whatever. You can kind of hear it.
I think it's like the dead souls that are making that sound.
And he's got a very weak horn that he'll take out a couple times, and which makes it even more bizarre. But overall, it was never a typical movie. I know we've started off this is our second podcast with a movie that I want to typically gravitate to.
Right. But
this one kind of like found me.
Yeah. And then you told me about it.
And I was like, yo, you kind of have to watch this.
Yeah. This is one I don't think you like to watch. You don't want to watch it alone, but you feel awkward asking anybody to watch it with you.
Yeah. Go find another weirdo who would watch it with you.
Yeah. You're all our freaks. What is it? What do we call our
creeps and creatures?
Creeps and creatures. We'd watch it. We'd watch it with our creeps and our creatures. But
yeah, and to be honest with you, if you saw me, you want to be like, "Wow, this guy's a creep and a creature." I don't like exude horror. I'm not like I don't dress that way. Neither does Chris. I don't even collect stuff, but Chris does. I'm just a guy who's always appreciated this genre of movie. So I think we represent the dudes out there who don't necessarily live and breathe horror as far as our personalities.
Right.
But it's something we do entertain ourselves with year round.
Yeah. It's one of those movies, you see the commercials on TV. And,
yeah.
Oh, I'm not going to go see that. It's a scary movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this is a place where you'd be like, you know what, I kind of have this weird side. I'll watch this stuff, but it's not me 100%. Like we just turned off the Phillies. We were like, all right, let's go talk about Art the Clown.
So in terms of like the very beginning of the movie, you're kind of introduced to a what do you want to call her, like a faceless character on a newscast, right? And she's horribly disfigured. You don't really know much about her other than the fact that she's survived something extremely gruesome.
Yes, definitely her face got deformed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you don't know really much about it other than that. And
which was funny because she did up her hair to look pretty on TV.
She did look beautiful. She looked beautiful.
Yeah.
Despite no face, but she was beautiful, and
she turns out to be a victim of,
which we'll get into.
We'll get into that. But it started off with her being interviewed, and then it ends up the reporter was in the the dressing room, and that's when you start to feel the eerie sense that something else could be in there, and then like the clothes shook, and then she jumped out. The girl with the disfigured face destroys her, and then it gets into art, and so it kind of starts off kind of quick, right?
Yeah.
It kind of just gets into it, and it's
but you have no real background on who that woman is.
No. So this is another episode. It's another movie where it kind of just gets right into it. Mm-hmm. You're not rooting for any character, and it's senseless what Art does. We'll explain some of his mannerisms and things we picked up on that kind of play into that. But this movie only cost, this is only 2016, $35,000.
That's incredible.
That was just like
you can't even buy a car for that anymore.
No, that was just
that was the average car price before COVID.
He could have just done that on his like iPhone.
Yeah, and I think for that, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but what is it? What I see was like a 58, 59, 60% Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
And I think
pretty good.
Which for a $35,000 movie that we've just talked about for the past 10 minutes about this sadistic clown who made us uncomfortable. I think the guy hit the nail on the head. Damien Leone, I think it is, the director. Which, side note, did you see that the trailer just came out for the new one? Just came out today.
It did, and that was actually a reason why you called an audible. We were going to do something else, but it's only a couple months away before Terrifier 2, so we kind of had to revisit this one.
We did. If anyone's listening and they don't know what Terrifier is, or they want to just kind of get a refresher without having to go through and sit through what I would say is just torture.
And I will say we've watched it a few times. It wasn't nearly as uncomfortable this time because you know what you're in for, but he still has his presence about him. And I don't know. It was there was like a thunderstorm last night. I'm like, what the hell?
Why not?
Why the hell are we doing this? But no, I'm glad we did. There's certain characters in it who start off Tara and Dawn are like these two very attractive
They're the
women.
two drunk girls on Halloween night coming back from the party.
Yeah, they got the classic. We're gonna be a slutty something for Halloween, right?
Right.
It's got that. We're on Instagram. We're doing all this. We're taking our pictures, and that's the scene where he's walking down. And then they kind of zoom in on his face, and he's just so menacing looking.
He is.
And she goes, "Hey, look at him." They end up going into a pizza shop,
and he follows him in.
And that was creepy because he just sat down and he had these pissed off eyes, just sitting down looking at him, not saying a word. And
that would make me feel uncomfortable.
That was a good scene. He's stalkerish, but he's in front of you stalking.
Yeah.
He's not like, who's that guy all the way over there? He'll just come up right up to you and just sit next to you.
And I think in most cases, if you saw something like that on Halloween night, you'd react the same way these girls did, right? They kind of think it's a little weird, but also they kind of play it off as him maybe just being in character.
Yeah. And if I didn't mention that, I'm pretty sure I did. It is Halloween night.
Yes, yes. But it's just, I don't know, man. He's they have no idea what they have in store, what he has in store for them.
No, I wasn't expecting it either. And this was one of those movies where this is technically a follow-up. It was like, not a prequel, but All Hallows Eve came out in 2013, and it was one of those 4-part stories things, but people really took to his character. So I had to watch All Hallows Eve after I watched this, and at some point we will review that. And just when I thought he wasn't any creepier, I thought personally he was way creepier in that, and it made me so uncomfortable. That movie still makes me uncomfortable.
Well, he kills kids. I mean, we'll get into it, but
it's not even.
And
that.
he laughs about
just the way that was directed with the television scene. But that's for another podcast. But it still has to do with Art the Clown.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not a nice guy. He's a bad clown. He is more evil than it.
So Dawn gets a little cocky with Art, and she sits on his lap and takes a selfie with him and all the like. And Art goes into he finds a quarter,
right? And
doesn't he go into a vending or into one of those vending and gets her
and
a
this
ring?
Is at like a corner pizza shop, just a dump place.
Yeah. One of those quarter you get those plastic balls with the toys in it.
So he got a little ring.
So he's showing off as though he's in love with, I think, Tara.
Yeah.
And then he just goes abruptly to the bathroom.
Yes. And then he gets kicked out by, of course, his name's Vinny. These are like two Italian guys who own a pizza shop.
Yeah.
And he goes, get the hell out of here, all this kind of stuff. And there's this shit all over the walls. So he's actually, that's borderline psychotic in of itself when people take a shit.
He defecated and he wrote his name.
Art the Clown. So he's an artist. He's very deep.
Yeah, he's just I still don't know if he's a human or not. What?
No, but that you don't realize that until the end, if he's supernatural or not.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah, he does make me uncomfortable.
So these girls, they drive. They need to pull over. One needs to go to the bathroom. And I guess it's just apartment complex. I don't know. But there's this maintenance guy outside. And it's funny because this guy's like, I don't know if I could let you girls use the bathroom. I could lose my job type of deal. He goes, all right, fine, get in. This guy's the worst maintenance guy in the world.
Yeah.
And then they go in there and she used the bathroom, and it looked like Art had already been in there. It was the worst kept condominium or whatever it was, apartment complex I've ever seen. The worst bathroom. There's rats everywhere.
It's Art's dungeon, his lair.
And this guy, this maintenance man, the worst maintenance man I've ever seen, has the audacity to tell these two girls, I don't know if I could let you in here to use this bathroom. Maybe he was just trying to do them a service by not letting them in there. But it's a gritty, dirty vibe, the whole movie. I don't know if it's purposely shot that way. I think it was. I know it's a cheap budget, but it was. You were supposed to feel a little dirty watching it. Like, oh, this is you could smell that place.
Well, you think, and I mean, I've already said this already, but he just makes me so uncomfortable. But with all the crime that you hear about in today's news, can you imagine if just word got out that there was just a killer clown?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either, but I think that would make people think twice about going out after curfew and all that stuff. They knew that guy was out there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there's bad people out there, but if someone specifically looked like him,
yeah,
and they said they saw him in Bucks County,
yeah,
I'd consider moving.
Well, if it was, like Philadelphia or New York, he would be arrested and then released with no bail. He'd be back out there.
You couldn't stop him.
No, you couldn't. So anyway, the worst possible maintenance man is the one who really slips up here. He lets them in, and then I guess he was exterminated. I don't know what he was doing. Art pays them a visit. Oh, I need to backtrack a little bit. Art, this was a spooky scene too. The other girl who's waiting in the car for her to come out.
Oh, Dawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she hears on the news, she's on the radio, that this guy killed 2 people, and those 2 people were the owners at the pizza shop. She freaks out. I didn't see this scene coming. You hear the car door open, and you assume it's Tara. Gets in, she looks over, and it's just Art the Clown sitting there, and then he slowly turns his head and looks at her and smiles. It was a good scene. It was, all right, he's in your car and there's nothing you can do. That was bizarre. So that was good. It does have these moments of continual just creep factors.
Sure, yeah.
You're not like desensitized by him throughout the movie. It doesn't like, oh, I've seen enough of this.
No, you don't see, you see him, but you're always wondering if he's around the next corner. You don't see too much of him.
Yeah, he's just weird. And then of course he kills her. And to fast forward back to the apartment complex, it becomes like a game of cat and mouse with the other one. Kills the maintenance guy, and his kills are pretty gruesome. I forgot to mention the guy he killed at the pizza shop. He somehow, I guess this is why he goes by Art the Clown. He was able to carve out the guy's head and turn into a jack-o'-lantern.
And doesn't he run the other guy's head through like a meat?
Yeah, just brutal. It's a very gory, just over the top type of kills. So expect that. But he's very creative, and his kills get more and more creative.
You can't knock him for that.
No. In fact, I think that's become like the centerpiece of this character.
Yeah.
Especially in Terrifier 2 coming up, they say like, well, wait till you find out what he did in this one.
Oh yeah.
That's his thing.
He owns it. He knows.
Because I have the best ways to take people out.
And I want to kill a lot of people, and that's my thing.
With no rhyme or reason. That's the other thing. I think there's no motive behind this guy.
No.
That originally started with Michael Myers, right? Like, they couldn't figure out. And so they kind of killed that with his. Then you find out he was in relation.
Well, that was in the second one, and they cut that out.
Right.
That's only through one of the storylines through Halloween. But
so this guy has no motive, just to inflict. He just wants to inflict pain.
He's
people.
like the devil's pet. The devil.
Yeah, he's
the
Satan.
devil. He's Satan himself, I think.
Just pure evil.
Yep.
And then there's another interesting character who's at this condominium. It's like, I guess she's a homeless lady with like a doll baby, like that porcelain doll.
Oh, she's like a cat lady.
Yeah, it's not the best acting. And I guess she just lives in the basement or the dungeon. And she strikes me as a lady who maybe always wanted a child, couldn't have one. So she carries around this porcelain doll that she pushes around in a, I don't know, like a little carriage or whatever.
Bassinet,
Yeah, and there comes to be a scene where even Art is like cradling that baby.
And doesn't he start to suck her boob?
No, he starts to suck his thumb.
That's right. Yes.
Because she's like, sir, please, if there's any decency in you at all. And
There
then
is
like
none.
she's like hugging him, and like the way he just sucked his thumb, and she was like coddling him. It was
Uncomfortable.
so uncomfortable.
It is.
It was like kind of like I'm like, you know what? That's why I had one of those moments, kind of like, you know, like, I know people like certain genres, but it's just I don't think anyone actually enjoyed that. You know what I mean? It was just weird.
Yeah, no, that's a weird part.
It was.
You know,
bizarre.
I'm thinking as we're talking, because I'm looking at you, is we both have kind of similar features to Art the Clown.
I know. At some point, I'm gonna post some pictures of myself. I can make myself kind of look like him.
Yeah, man, you're creepy yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, he's creepy. Definitely the vibe so far. If you haven't seen this movie, just make yourself feel uncomfortable. So anyway, there's that weird scene where he cradles the lady,
Yeah.
or she cradles him.
I don't like that woman. It's she and herself is just crazy. It's just a very uncomfortable scene for me.
Yeah, and then it gets to a point where, like I said, it was a cat and mouse game. The scene where the other girl finally, she sees him. She busts out of the one door, and then he's just standing there, and he's paused. Remember that? And he's holding his little switchblade or whatever that is. I keep saying switchblade, but I can't figure out what that
It's
little
like a
blade
scalpel.
is. It's a scalpel.
Yeah.
And he's just paused, and then she pauses, and then he moves real quick.
Yes. Yeah.
His movements are really creepy.
Yep.
He's got good cadence in the way he moves around.
So he eventually captures Tara. I think he puts a needle in her like.
He does, but before that, he chases her out until like I guess it was like a parking garage with all these abandoned cars, whatever. And then she runs out, and then it's one of those scenes where she's hiding behind like the third row of cars, and she's looking up because he was chasing her. And then you could see him through like, multiple car lanes down, and he's kind of looking around, and he moves like a snake.
Oh yes, yeah.
And he like moves his head, and he's looking through like the windows and stuff, and very creepy.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
eventually he creeps up on her, and he cuts her by the Achilles. She gets away. Yada yada. It gets to a point where, that's right. He somehow, I guess, he just has a lethal, not a lethal, but like some kind of sedative.
No surprise there. He's got a whole bag of tricks
You
up
know,
his sleeves.
so I guess he just had that, and he knocks her out. And then it gets into, I guess, the key scene.
Yes, this is.
Wow, this is like if you're an Art the Clown fan or a Terrifier, this is like on like a T-shirt somewhere.
This
it's
is
on a mug.
This is groundbreaking, but not in a good way.
Yeah, I was not expecting it.
Yeah, this is cinema at its
It's
best worst.
just so over the top.
Yeah, it's
So she wakes up tied up, and then
she being Tara.
yeah, like it matters. We'll get to that point. It doesn't. So he goes to, he puts a hammer to her head. He doesn't do it. Picks out a saw. Just totally messing with her. And then he looks over at like just hanging drape, and that's when he pulled it down, and it was her friend
Dawn upside down,
hanging upside down, naked, and she's got like a
gag in her mouth.
something, and she's screaming. So I won't say I don't believe we should give too much away, but he's very crafty with the handsaw, and that was it. You don't want to.
Yeah, I think you guys can go on. I think there's actually
Yeah.
a Wikipedia. It's
Yeah.
Death by Saw.
It's kind of like what the hell. Yeah, but it was kind of like
And it's not even, without getting too much into that. It's not just the act, but it's more the facial expressions of
like
art.
him looking
He's-
back at her.
He's proud of himself. He's looking back, and he's simply terrifying, which is perfect because
Yeah.
his movie's named Terrifier.
Yeah.
He just wants to inflict as much emotional and physical pain on anybody that he comes in contact with.
Yeah.
Oh man, this scene, you can't unsee that.
Yeah, and we have a couple personal stories we probably won't tell where, we watched it on a blow up thing in our good friend's backyard. At some point he's going to be on the cast to talk about a movie.
Yes.
Just make sure there's nobody else that could possibly see it.
Like a
Like a kid.
6-year-old kid.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, you don't want that.
No.
But I think he's doing all right. It doesn't matter.
He'll be fine.
But no, so that was the peak of that movie. But then, of course, it didn't end. That lady who was carrying around the porcelain baby.
Yes.
He ended up wearing her skin.
Forgot about yes. Yeah. He removes her breasts, I guess.
Yeah, it was like a reverse Leatherface. So he kept his mask on, but he put her body like on his
and the
chest.
way that he's walking,
and he wore her dress too.
Yeah, he walks all like kind of like a almost like a drugged out.
It was like it was Silence of the Lamb. The way what's his name? I know his name like the back of my
Hannibal
hand.
Lecter.
No, the Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill, yes.
The way he was dancing outside that well in his place.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When he was trying on her skin and he tucked it in, the famous tuck-in scene.
Sure.
He had those mannerisms to him, and he was still chasing the same girl. But it's like, and then he was riding around on that little tricycle like he was the Saw clown.
Yeah, he's got a lot of
just bizarre.
I don't know what he is. I still don't know what he is.
And we keep saying that because you were like, well, he's just a dude dressed up like a clown, but no. And then eventually it gets down to a point where this girl's kind of duking it out with him, and she can't quite kill him, right?
Right.
So he does something that I did not see coming. It seems very uncharacteristic of Art. He pulls out a gun.
He's got like a Glock.
Like a Glock.
Yeah.
And just shoots her. And like he kind of you just see the smoke come up, and he's just watching her. He seemed like disappointed in himself.
Well, that's not how he would have wanted to kill her. But at the same time, it goes to show you that Art is not. He doesn't play by the game, but play by the rules.
Yeah, it came to the point. It's like, and
he knew he was losing. He knew he might lose, so he said he resorts to the last ditch effort and just pulls out a handgun.
He was upset he had to do it, but there's no way he would not kill somebody.
And that's not the first time you see him use a gun, because he uses a gun in All Hallows Eve again, which we'll get into
I'm not confusing it. So he did kill somebody in Terrifier with a gun, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm not confusing two.
He kills Tara at the end with that, because she can't. She's beating him down, so he's losing. So he uses that in All Hallows Eve as well. Yeah. But All Hallows Eve never really fleshed his character out as its own movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So right before he did that, it was just a weird observation that I noticed that he got in the pickup truck. He was listening to jazz music, and he was like bouncing, hitting the old steering wheel there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I assume he went with jazz because it's just random, spontaneous. You can just improvise.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of plays into his character.
And then actually, to go back real quick with the Saw death, which we won't get into too much, but I say look at Wikipedia because there's actually a Wikipedia page around it, and it mentions in it that that's a form of torture from centuries ago.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that are they trying to get you to think that Art the Clown maybe he's been around for much longer than we would ever imagine.
I don't think with $35,000 budget they probably didn't put that much thought into it.
Yeah, well maybe I am. So I usually try to pick things apart like that.
Yeah, me too. But I don't know. People were really messed up in the medieval times.
But it's around that time that I guess the sister, right? What's the sister's name again? Was it Victoria?
Probably, yeah.
I think the sister Victoria of Tara.
Yeah.
Remember, she's worried about her sister, and she goes to pick her up, and that's where she comes face to face with who she believes. Well, she sees Art, but for the first time there, obviously. But she thinks that she's found her sister, and it actually winds up being it was the homeless lady that Art had ripped off her breast and her face and her hair.
So he mismatches people's bodies.
But he starts to chase her down. That's where he's listening to the jazz music, as you were mentioning.
Yeah.
He chases her into like a garage.
Yeah.
And he rams his car right through the garage door.
Yes.
And he starts to remember he's trying to get through, and he pulls out his horn. He's got like
that was what I was talking about. It was weak horn. It wasn't a silent horn.
Yeah,
it was a silent horn in All Hallows Eve.
It was like one of those like bike horns, right?
It was, and like he was just doing that, and it was just so
That's
bizarre.
The only real sound that he makes is from this horn. And long story short, he finally gets to Victoria, and he starts to what appears to be eat her face, right?
That's that special move he tries to do, where it's the same type of move that he did on the girl in the very beginning who's given an interview on television.
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of just it morphs this girl's face into something.
And then the cops come,
Yeah.
And they have Art the Clown surrounded, which is like, all right, well, I'm thinking as the viewer, how the hell are they going to get out of this part? I mean, how the hell is Art going to get out of this, right?
Yeah.
And
he turns around and puts a gun on himself.
Behold, he pulls that gun on himself. He pulls the gun out and puts it in his mouth and just pulls the trigger, blows his brains out.
Yeah.
And you don't think anything of it, right? It's I mean, you just, wow, how the heck did they come up with that? But he's dead. Or so you think, right?
And that was it. And then they take him to the morgue. And I don't know what it is with movies and the guys who work at morgues. They're always snacking. They always treat them like they're schmucks who just want to clock in and clock out. They're like, what, you have another body for me like this late? Like, what are you doing to me? And they always like blame it on the cops. I don't know if you picked up on that theme in like
they do that in Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what, isn't that your job? I mean, most murders probably come in late at night anyway, I imagine.
The morgue death scene is very, very common in horror movies.
Yes. So this is where we got to the point where, Art the Clown's in there in a body bag. And that's when the weird things started happening with the lights.
Yeah,
they were flickering like on and off, and the clock was being weird. And then
he just is resurrected.
Yes. So we're thinking, I don't know if he's supernatural. I don't know where they're going to go in the second one coming out. He can't be real then, if that's the case. So, and he kind of comes back to life.
And then the closing of the loop, from the beginning is that I guess it turns out that the woman whose face was eaten at the very end, Victoria.
Yeah.
Do I have her name correctly? I keep saying it. Victoria.
If there's any Terrifier fans out there that are furious that we're butchering her name,
well,
but just start commenting. I want to know if this is actually going to bother a super fan. And if you're a super fan of this movie, I don't know. Maybe you should just, I don't know. You're definitely a creep and a creature. I'll say that.
She's actually the one from the beginning with the deformed face.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No, I thought he just does that too.
No, that's what it does. You don't know who she is until the very end. You realize that she is.
I thought he just does that to random ones, and then they do it to somebody else.
No. So she's the victim, and she's just going a little crazy. So, and apparently, that's essentially the end of the movie, right? That's where it leaves you hanging for Terrifier 2, and it's again not the greatest movie, but. Yeah. Terrifying nonetheless, and I think strictly because of this character, Art the Clown.
Yeah.
But apparently she's for Terrifier 2, that woman, Victoria, who's now like whose face is mangled, she's back in it. So I'm interested to see if she's on his side,
right,
or if she's final girl or some sort.
Me, I'm totally uninterested, and because I think this movie was made for people who don't care about plots but love gore, and if that's the kind of horror fan you are. I highly recommend this, but I think it's one of those movies that it's more about the character and not the story.
This is one of those movies where I think if you enjoy it,
I'm not judging you
can't
if you enjoy it.
It's uncomfortable to tell anybody that you like the movie.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like we've watched it so many times. It's kind of like, more like you kind of have to see.
But it's
this.
almost like a secret. Like I don't like letting.
This is really
I'm
weird.
not telling certain friends like, hey, you watch Terrifier, like. They're gonna say no, and they're gonna. And if they ever see any of those scenes,
and once in a while we'll
you?
share like just a picture of his face in a text message with somebody else. We're like, and then we're always like, oh my God, he's just so terrible.
Yes, he is evil. He is evil.
Yeah. So if you love gore and kills, I don't care how phony it looks, over the top stuff. I highly recommend this movie.
What would you say, Saul death aside, is the best kill in this movie?
Well, definitely when he wore that lady's body with the dress. Well, there was no kill. It was just him just being.
Well, he
weird.
definitely killed her after like sucking.
I mean,
thumb.
It was creative after he turned that guy's head into a jack-o'-lantern. You know how hard it is to like light anything.
Well, and
something
and
that
Michael
wet.
Myers does that in the Halloween 2018. He makes the cop's head like a jack-o'-lantern too.
Yeah.
So there's an art there. Well, look, no pun intended, right? But it's Art the Clown, but he's got a talent for making jack-o'-lanterns out of human heads.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and for me, I've watched it a few times. It does wear off. So this is just me. It had the like, oh my word factor to it, and maybe the second one will. But it's gotten to me where the point's kind of like, I don't know if I should still be watching this, but I'm definitely going to watch the second one. But if you're a person who can just, you're just into that type of movie, that type of horror movie, then just go for that.
So what would you say on a scale? On our scale,
Well, I mean, I'm gonna judge it based off the first time I watched it. I would say, and mind you, if you listen to the first episode, this is still patent pending. We have a whole team of lawyers who are still working on this.
Don't even try.
Don't even try it. You other podcasters out here secretly listening to this who's not liking and subscribing. I know you're so jealous of our patent of how to rate these movies.
Yeah.
Let's go over it again because not everybody listened to the first episode.
Sure. So it's a scale of 1 to 4.
Sure.
1 being
the weakest.
Yes, and what is that called?
Spookless.
That's spookless. That's right. Spookless. Spookless is just you can watch. It's not scary at all. That's the best way to describe it. Number 2 is not too spooky.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of jumps, but
yeah.
What did we say? I guess I think you'd mentioned
it had a moment.
A 13-year-old version of myself.
Yeah, or if it's a movie that if you watched it years ago and it still holds up, then you could say it's that. And then what's the final?
Well, there's 3.
There's 3 more.
That's
yeah.
spooky.
And then it's not too spooky.
And then it's way too spooky.
I'm just testing you. I'm just making sure you understand because the lawyers want to make sure we know this as well.
I do pop quizzes on myself daily.
Yeah, gotcha.
But way too spooky is number 4.
And for me, that's a hard Richter. That's a hard one to hit on the Richter scale.
Yeah. So what would you give this movie?
I would say, based off the first time I watched it, it was spooky.
Yeah. What would you give Art the Clown himself?
He personally is way too spooky, I guess. I'm just trying to rate this as the movie, not the character.
I know. Me too. And I would say I would agree with you on the movie. It's spooky, but
personally, it's kind of digressed in between like a 2.5 of not too spooky and spooky. But I'm solely going to base this off when I first 2 times I watched it.
So okay,
because honestly, most people don't rewatch so many movies over and over again.
And if I'm doing the same thing, I'd say a spooky as well. It's
yeah.
I don't want to ever find out that he's real.
No.
I don't ever want to find out that he's real.
And then I think the second one is coming out October, and that was delayed because of COVID, right?
It was, yeah. It was supposed to come out.
So it's been a long tease of them. They were releasing small bits here and there as far as like a trailer is concerned.
And I think that they promise. Now, a lot of the time they make these promises and they can't keep them. But apparently that Saul death scene is supposed to be it won't even compare. Won't even compare to the new death scene in this new movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of like now you're already expecting the absolute worst. So I don't really know what more they could do.
No.
But no, overall, he's a freaky clown.
Yeah, he is.
He's a spooky clown. I would say that. If you have not seen it, definitely go see it. It's on Tubi.
It's on Roku. It's free everywhere.
It's definitely free. You do not have to pay for this movie.
But it's memorable. You will.
Yes,
you
it's
will
not
never,
forgettable.
You will not forget this. Forget this movie. And you're not. It's not going to win any awards. But it is.
But it's slowly becoming like an underground following. You're definitely seeing Art probably at. He's definitely like a HorrorCon kind of guy. But he's if you watch enough YouTube reviews on this guy. He's definitely kind of make his way up in the ranks as far as legitimate horror icons.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think he'll be around in merchandise and in comic books for years to come for the horror fan base.
Yeah,
and I really truly believe that.
But if you've seen this, if you're going to watch it, I would highly recommend. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it at a different time. All Hallows Eve, because if you like creepiness. And you like some of the things that we described, I personally thought his creep factor in certain scenes and things he did was way creepier in All Hallows Eve. But Terrifier was all about him. That's the difference.
Yep.
So revisit that. Watch them both back to back. You'll be glad you did. And then some of you will be glad to not rewatch Terrifier again. But that's all I have to say about that one. I'm kind of glad. I'm going to be very honest with you throughout these podcasts. I don't love every single one. We all have different tastes within horror. After watching it again last night, I'm kind of glad we kind of just did that because we know we're going to have to talk about Terrifier 2.
Sure. Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
I think we got to make that like a live event.
Yes,
So
I am looking forward to it,
not
but
live in the sense that we'll watch it and then immediately after we'll talk about it, because
yeah.
I'm sure we're all going to be pretty messed up for
Yeah.
a few days from that one.
Yeah, and we may change gears in the next 2 episodes to something. We're never going to tell you what we're going to do, but like I said, we're going to touch on base for everybody because we like everything. So
again, thank you so much for listening to our sequel episode. Let's see if we make it to the third episode alive. I'm looking at Connor right now and thinking I may want to kill this guy, but I think he's thinking he might want to kill me too.
And to quote Art the Clown, that was it. He didn't say anything. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. And thanks for listening to Way Too Spooky. We'll see you back in about a week.
Be safe out there. Take care.
All right, later.